The main difference between a planned and a market economy lies in who owns the resources and how the major economic decisions regarding production, distribution, and pricing are made. Here is a breakdown of the key differences. Planned economy, decision making and control. A central planning authority of the government dictates all major economic decisions such as what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom, as well as setting the prices for goods and services. Ownership. The government owns most resources and major sectors, including land, factories, banks, and transport. Competition and innovation. Because private ownership is highly restricted and enterprises must follow government targets rather than market demand, there is very little competition, which often reduces the motivation to innovate or improve product quality. Examples: North Korea, Cuba, and the former Soviet Union. Market economy, decision making and control. Economic decisions are driven primarily by the market forces of demand and supply rather than a central authority. Ownership. Resources, factories, shops, and land are predominantly owned by private individuals and companies. Role of the government. The government plays a minimal role in the market. It does not control prices or production. Instead, it acts like a referee by ensuring safety, maintaining law and order, and providing public goods and physical infrastructure. Competition and innovation. Since multiple producers offer similar products and consumers drive demand, there is a strong incentive for companies to compete by offering better quality, lower prices, and innovative goods and services. Examples: the United States of America, Japan. Note: in reality, most countries, including India, operate as a mixed economy, which blends features of both systems by allowing private enterprises to compete in the market while the government regulates them and provides public welfare. Opportunity cost is the value of the alternative option that is given up whenever a choice is made. Because resources such as money, time, land, and labor are limited, but human wants are unlimited, it is impossible to satisfy every desire. Consequently, every economic decision inherently involves a trade-off, and opportunity cost is the measure of that trade-off. Evaluating opportunity cost plays a critical role in making optimized, efficient choices across all levels of an economy. Individual choices. For consumers, opportunity cost dictates how they allocate limited personal resources like time and money. For example, if a student has 100 rupees and chooses to buy a notebook, the opportunity cost is giving up in ability to save that money towards a tennis racket. Business and production. Decisions. Enterprises must constantly evaluate opportunity cost to decide what to produce in order to maximize output and avoid wasting resources. For instance, a farmer with a limited piece of land must decide between growing barley or wheat. Producing more barley means sacrificing a certain amount of wheat, which becomes the opportunity cost of that choice. Economists often map these alternative production choices on a production possibility curve (PPC) to visualize trade-offs and help businesses make better planning decisions. Government and policy planning. Governments must assess opportunity costs when deciding how to allocate public resources, such as choosing whether to spend limited funds on building highways or constructing hospitals. Factoring in opportunity cost also helps policymakers weigh short-term economic gains against long-term sustainability. For example, if a region decides to produce water-intensive, highly profitable crops like sugarcane, the opportunity cost is the foregone benefit of saved water and healthier soil that would have been achieved by planting drought-resistant crops like millets. Ultimately, economists deeply analyze these available alternatives and their associated opportunity costs to help individuals, enterprises, and institutions make informed, data-driven decisions that best allocate scarce resources. This audio has foundational economic terms to help understand the core concepts: market, a physical or virtual place on the internet where the buying and selling of products and services takes place. Resources, the factors used to produce goods and services. These can be natural resources such as water and coal, or human-made resources such as capital and technology. Production Possibility Curve, PPC, a curve showing the different combinations of goods that can be produced using all available resources. Economy, the state of a country or region regarding the flow of money and the production and consumption of goods and services. It is also defined as the overall system of production, distribution, trade, and consumption within a specific area. Surveys, a systematic method used for collecting and analyzing data related to the economic behaviors and conditions of populations. Data, facts and statistics collected together for analysis or reference. Economic entities, participants in economic activities which include consumers, producers, enterprises, and the government. Policy, a principle or course of action that is proposed or adopted by individuals or organizations. Planned economy, an economic system in which the government determines the allocation of resources as well as the prices of goods and services. Market economy, an economic system where market forces primarily determine the allocation of resources and prices, while the government's role is to provide physical infrastructure and public goods. Public goods, goods and services that are available to all individuals without excluding anyone. One person's use of a public good such as parks, roads, basic education, street lights, and police services does not prevent others from using it. Mixed economy, a market system of resource allocation where the private sector and government coexist and compete, with the government regulations helping private players. Almost all economic operates as mixed economies. The Production Possibility Curve, PPC, is a graphical representation showing the various combinations of goods that can be produced when all available resources are used efficiently. Because resources such as land, labor, capital, and technology are limited, an economy or enterprise cannot produce endless amounts of everything. The PPC visually maps out the necessary trade-offs in production. If a producer wants to increase the output of one good, they must decrease the output of another, and the value of this sacrificed alternative is known as the opportunity cost. For example, if a farmer with a limited plot of land, water, and labor wants to grow both barley and wheat, the PPC graph will show maximum possible quantities of each crop they can yield. As the farmer shifts resources to grow more barley, they are forced to grow less wheat. Ultimately, every point along the PPC demonstrates the maximum output that can be achieved without wasting any resources. By analyzing this curve and understanding the opportunity cost of different choices, enterprises and governments can better evaluate their production capabilities and make optimized data-driven planning decisions. In economics, the difference between a need and a want comes down to necessity versus preference. Needs are essential items required for survival, such as food, water, and shelter. Wants are non-essential preferences or luxury items such as gadgets, vacations, or the desire to upgrade from a bicycle to a motorbike and eventually to a car. The most crucial difference from an economic perspective is that while basic needs are relatively finite, human wants are unlimited and constantly changing. Because the resources required to satisfy these desires, such as natural materials, labor, and capital, are limited in quantity, it is impossible to fulfill every human want. This mismatch between infinite wants and scarce resources creates the fundamental economic problem of choice. It forces individuals, enterprises, and governments to constantly weigh trade-offs and decide how to allocate best their limited resources to satisfy as many needs and wants as efficiently as possible. In economics, the difference between a need and a want comes down to necessity versus preference. Needs are essential items required for survival, such as food, water, and shelter. Wants are non-essential preferences or luxury items, such as gadgets, vacations, or the desire to upgrade from a bicycle to a motorbike and eventually to a car. The most crucial difference from an economic perspective is that while basic needs are relatively finite, human wants are unlimited and constantly changing. Because the resources required to satisfy these desires, such as natural materials, labor, and capital, are limited in quantity, it is impossible to fulfill every human want. This mismatch between infinite wants and scarce resources creates the fundamental economic problem of choice. It forces individuals, enterprises, and governments to constantly weigh trade-offs and decide how to best allocate their limited resources to satisfy as many needs and wants as efficiently as possible.